who is doing God's work by raising consciousness amongst the global citizens, especially those of particular interest to Zimbabwe. Revolutionary greetings to you, my brother, and revolutionary greetings to our viewers. Thank you very much to all those who have joined us on this particular panel. I appreciate this particular moment. Aluta, continua.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Comrade Treasure Basopo. Mr. Emmanuel Gumbo, welcome to the conversation.
Oh, thank you, Chikumbu. Thank you very much. I would like to give great appreciation to this program, and also like to welcome and extend my revolutionary greetings to all the panelists here, the esteemed, eminent young people, and also the viewers of this program. This is a program which we must all embrace on the clear basis that it sees the future, on the clear basis that we, the young people, will take a lead. Thank you very much. Keep on doing good work, Gumbo.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo. Let me bring in Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the fellow panelists that have extended the revolutionary greetings to all of us. I would say this program would have not come at any better opportune time where we have a crisis in Zimbabwe and where
I think we might be having some connection problem with Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida, but nevertheless, let me bring in one other panelist, Thabiso Sibanda. Welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Anotida, and hi to my fellow panelists, and hi to the viewers. I will just finish off from where Delight started to say that this is a very important space. It's a very important conversation that we are having at a time like this, and I think it's important to really look at how issues around politics affect young people and how they affect young women to be particular, looking at the fact that actually we constitute as young people the largest percentage in terms of the Zimbabwean population. So it is really important for us to be engaged and to take active participation in all of the processes that have to do with the building of our nation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Thabiso. I think we had some connection problem when Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida was giving his opening remarks. Mr. Muchazondida, can you come back again?
Thank you so much. I am very much sorry for the glitch. We became a victim of technology, but I think it also serves as a testament to the crisis that we are facing in Zimbabwe. Internet connectivity, which is very pivotal to circles like this, but because of how cost the data is, how our infrastructure cannot cater within the rainy season, this had to happen. But I wanted to say this program would have not come at a better time. We have a crisis in Zimbabwe. Our young people, they constitute 67.7% of our population fabric, which means to say we became the agents of the social change that we want, the political change we want, and ultimately the economic change that we want to see. So thank you very much for unveiling such a space, and thank you so much for this top shot of panelists that we have today. I'll be speaking as an average informed citizen, not coming from any political party, nor holding any important seat, but an average informed citizen. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Muchazondida. Let us get to start the discussion for the day. So my first question goes to Mr. Treasure Basopo, and this question was submitted by one of our audience, Isaac Maramba. Isaac Maramba is based in Harare, and he wrote the following that I should ask one of our panelists today. And he wrote that in Zimbabwe, members of parliament are elected on the so-called open party list. It sometimes happens that for some reason, an elected member decides to quit his or her party and to stay as an independent member or to switch parties. Some people argue that such a move away from the party list should not be possible, stating that the seat mainly belongs to the party and not to the individual member of parliament. Political parties often feel robbed or is in incidences where the member of parliament rebels against his party and goes out to join another one, or just decide to stand as an independent member of parliament. So now the question that was submitted is that under what circumstances should a member of parliament lose his or her seat? And do members of parliament represent the interests of their parties, or they represent the interests of the generality of the population that lives within that particular constituency without any political affiliation? Mr. Treasure Basopo.
Thanks, thanks once again, my brother, Commander-in-Chief, for reading out this particular question which was submitted to you, because I can't say for bringing this question because someone maybe brought it for you. But I'm not a lawyer. I think people like Zellers can give us better when it comes to the constitutionality and to the nitty-gritties of this particular matter with regards to the constitution. But to the best of my knowledge and understanding is that this is a matter of, it's a constitutional issue. This is what our people voted for in 2014. I think 94.5% of the people voted yes for that particular constitution. And it encompasses that particular issue of the whipping system, that particular issue of giving the parliament all the powers with regards to who is supposed to be in parliament and under what circumstances they're supposed to leave the parliament. So as it stands, when a member of parliament disagrees with his particular party and goes against what the party is saying, then he can be whipped or he can be taken out of that particular parliament. But it's part of the things which I feel are supposed to be corrected, because they give too much powers to our political parties. Also, given the nature of our political parties, that there's so much centrality of power. Look into what happens into ZANU-PF. I think ZANU-PF, they use what they call, I'm forgetting the particular, what you call it, the particular system that they use, but where power is so much, they call it democratic centralism, where power is centered on the secretary of the party, who happens to be the president also of the party and the president of the country, is the chancellor of all state universities, the military, what. He has so many particular powers. So it also means he is the head of the executive, but at the same time, he's also in massive and serious control of the parliament, because he is the head of his particular party. And I think maybe it can also be true to even the opposition, whereby the president is also the head of the party and utterly responsible for the people in the parliament. So it gives power to very few people in the country, and who are also responsible for the parliament. So that must be dealt with. And the other countries, I think they've proven to show that within their parties, there is so much autonomy, which is not so much centered on the individual. I think maybe if you can look at South Africa, even if you look at so many other countries also, including other Western parties, look at Norway also, even Sweden, they are very liberal when it comes to the parliament. It's not so much oversight on one person. So I think it must be dealt with. Citizens must galvanize to have a more independent parliamentary procedure. That's my submission, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Treasure Basopo. That was Mr. Treasure Basopo, a social and economic justice activist, as well as master student at the university, at Oslo Metropolitan University. Thank you very much, Mr. Treasure Basopo. I would want to reflect on that, and as well to make the other panelists reflect on that, on those comments. But before we get to do that, I would like to bring in Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida. A question was submitted to our Facebook page again by one of our esteemed followers, Freddy Tsomba. Freddy Tsomba submitted that since the onset of the regime of President Emmerson Mnangagwa, that he has been quote unquote referred to as the new dispensation, there have been some significant and increasing campaigns that the political actors dialogue bring in collaboration and coordination between different members of parliament from different political parties. That is to say, the MDC Alliance and as well the MDCT and as well ZANU-PF. And these efforts are referred to as bipartisan efforts that can ensure that Zimbabwe goes beyond politicking that doesn't get the country forward, but that gets to address issues that that are called for by the generality of the population without any political affiliation or without any favor or prejudice to one political party against the other. And now the question is, what measures can our government put in place to ensure that our members of parliament become more accountable to the people directly rather than to the agendas of their political parties? Mr. Delight Muchazondida.
Thank you so much, Chair, for that question. Let me first start by acknowledging the toxicity within our political environment, and that has corroded the political fabric to a degree that members of parliament get to serve at the interest of their political parties, not of that of the people that voted them into power. Number one, and which is key, is the government needs to reform itself. There's no two ways about it. We cannot accept one arm of the government, which is the legislature, to perform better when we have the judiciary saying to us to be compromised, when we have the executive saying to be compromised. But that is one thing that is key to this discussion. The government needs to reform itself. How does it reform itself? It needs to foster new avenues of being held accountable by the citizen. I always say that in Zimbabwe, a lot has happened, but the lack of the Whistleblowers Act that protects citizens from saying things are not going right in a certain constituency, it is the beginning of the problem. Because when I get to whistleblow, how am I going to be protected? How is my family going to be safeguarded from the actions that comes? You know, in Zimbabwe, there is freedom of speech, but your freedom after speech is something that we should have a dialogue about. That's number one. Now, coming back to the members of parliament. Number two, I believe and I feel as citizens, we should come up with a mechanism where members of parliament needs to have a basic qualification. The idea, which is now a fantasy of saying we just vote them into power just because they are eloquent in expressing their views, they lack the success factors, which is the education to hold government accountable within settings such as parliamentary portfolio committees, when they go to the visit, when they sit in the National Assembly to debate a budget. Some of the debates that we witness in parliament are deplorable. I'll tell you one particular instance, which I will not mention names, when members of parliament were busy arguing, are you circumcised? And it became the order of the day to say, shut up, and there were other issues that were burning that were never addressed. So that is a big challenge. And come to see how the configuration of the Senate, which is a body that rubber stamps what happens in the National Assembly. For you, you need to have at least 40 years. So we're saying the 67% has been rigidly been thrown away from that decision-making table, just because if you are not 40 in the Senate, as I'm holding the Constitution, these are not my own submissions, but from the Constitution, you need to have at least 40 years of age, which means our discussion is sometimes regarded as beer or talks by those who sit into those powers. The number three is, in 2005, we had the UNDP financing physical constituents offices in different constituencies, and citizens were able to visit their MPs, be it on a daily interval or on a weekly interval, and they could easily get information of what was transpiring within the parliament, what are the topic of discussion, what was taking priority. Nowadays, that lacks within the Zimbabwean parliament. Our members of parliament, they'll be in Chitungwiza while they stay in Borodale. They'll be representing South Park while they stay in Chishawasha. And there is now there's now a divorce between what they assume is important to the citizen and what is actually needed on the ground. So I believe these are some of the key things that we need to see our government pushing and making sure that it happens. Why did I say it needs to reforms? We have been subjected to a mantra of mega deals, but today the government does not have a website where we can log in to see which mega deals have been implemented, how much is left. That is a beginning point. Community development funds, they come, the MP now has a new G4D, just because we lack that platform where as citizens from the comfort of our homes, from the anonymity of technology, we can say, Maria Biwa Apa, things are not going well. So I believe this should be a starting point. I know there's a lot that needs to be done. We need to make sure again, and I'm happy that we have some of the panelists from political institutions. The idea to allow political institutions to revoke membership of parliamentarians because they're no longer serving at the interest of a certain political party is wrong. I would want to pose a question, if you may allow me, Chair. So what is going to happen to the community projects that were being implemented by other members of parliament who were revoked by MDCI Alliance? The 31 members of parliament that have come into office, are they also going to demand the perks such as the land cruisers, such as the perks that are given to the parliamentarians? You see that this money does not come from heaven. It comes from, it's taxpayers' money. What is going to happen? Thank you so much. For now, I will rest my submissions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Delight Muchazondida. Thank you very much for those comments. We are going to reflect on them. I'm going also to invite other panelists to reflect on them. But before we get to do that, I would also want to get in other two panelists into the discussion. Thabiso, Sibanda, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Arno. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Thabiso. Thabiso, there is a question here that was submitted by one of our audience. Submitted the question about women representation in parliament. It was submitted by Tsitsi Kachigololo, who is in Bulawayo. She submitted the question that the issue of women's representation in the Zimbabwean parliament is under the program of Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality Progress, that is in the Zimbabwean constitution, the one adopted in 2013. And she asks the question that, does the quota system work in ensuring that equitable representation in parliament is made? And do you think that Zimbabwe is making progress to ensure that women's representation goes beyond this quota system?
Okay, thank you. That's a very mouthful question. So I will start from the point that women in parliament, in the Zimbabwean parliament, constitute about 32%, which is a really commendable increase from around the times around the 90s, where we had about 14% of women representing us in parliament, really. So it is a very commendable achievement and a milestone to say we have moved to twice as much as the women that were there before. So I would like to open this discussion with saying that that's a commendable deal. But however, when we are now looking at the quota system, we are lagging behind other African nations, right? Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if we look at the Zimbabwean statistics, women constitute about 52% of the entire population. But that is not reflective now when it comes to issues to do with representation in parliament, right? So it is really sad then to look at it, because now when you look at all the crises that Zimbabwe has, honestly, it wears the face of women and children. So now it is not telling to look at the issues that really need to be pushed and addressed, and you look at the number of women that are there to then push for those issues, to then engage in dialogue, to engage in policy dialogue, and ensure that women and children's issues are really pushed. Let's look at countries like Rwanda that have set the pace. Rwanda is a world leader when it comes to women's participation in politics, because it has achieved 60% of the seats for women, really, which is very recommendable. We look at Namibia, which is about at 47%. We look at South Africa, which is around 50%. So I'm saying that, fine, we might have this 32%, but 32% of what at the end of the day? Are we saying that the 32% is enough, or we need to scale up, which I think we really need to scale up participation of women in parliament, considering the fact that I actually mentioned to say that most of the issues really that are happening around Zimbabwe, the crisis that is in Zimbabwe really affects women more than any other person. So we really need to put that in consideration and note that we really need to push for women's participation. So far, the quota system expires in 2023, right? But beyond 2023, we need to make sure that we make efforts to push for women to be represented, at least to have the 50-50 representation, which is, I'm actually glad because the Zimbabwean Women's Parliamentary Caucus is actually having those conversations, and they are pushing, and there are some civil society organizations that are also around, that are also pushing. I like a campaign that Walpe is working on, which is looking at ensuring that it's dubbed 2.2 million votes for women from women, because this is after recognition that we are actually, women actually constitute the larger population, right? So that can also be utilized. That can be utilized to ensure that representation in parliament is also reflective of our population percentages, right? But then we also need to look at this Anotida to say that it's not just about the quota system, right? There are also other issues that actually affect women in politics, that actually make it difficult for women to participate and thrive in politics, right? So we look at the entry barriers that are both socially and economic, look at issues to do with cultural norms and values, the stereotypes that is channeled towards women who want to engage in politics, really, that the fact that society views women as just mere caregivers and not politicians is also one of the things that might actually discourage women to participate in politics. Look at the enabling, the environment, the political environment in Zimbabwe. Actually, to me, it spells out that politics in Zimbabwe is not for women. Politics in Zimbabwe is not for young women even. Why am I saying that? Just look at the fact that the setting, the parliamentary setting is really not a safe space for women. A few weeks ago, I watched in disguised and not so honorable in courts, member of parliament disgrace a female member of parliament, you know, in full view of everyone, in full view of the nation, and you're looking at it, and somebody out there is sitting and they really want to be engaged, but when they see that, are they then encouraged to then want to take part in politics, right? So the language around that, sometimes it's so demeaning and so derogatory to females. So I think that for us to also ensure that there is maximum participation of women in politics, the environment needs to be conducive. We need to ensure that there is an environment where there is respect and there is dignity and there is ability for us to coexist, right? And we also look at the fact that the politics in Zimbabwe is quite violent, really, and it's not a friendly arena for women. We have, I always like when I'm having dialogues like this to refer to one Honorable Joanna Mamombe. To me, honestly, I think that Mamombe's success to being an MP, a youngest female MP of our generation, I don't know about things that happened in the past, I'm sorry, but for our generation, it was supposed to be resembling a breaking of a certain cycle. You know, it was supposed to be a huge milestone, whereas women really looking at what she has been reduced to at this point, we're supposed to be so angry, we're supposed to be very angry really, because it's an attack not just on her, but on every other woman, and every other young woman who would also want to take part in politics. Because I mean, her success should have been something that resembled to say that that women can also make it in the political arena. It was something that was also supposed to show that the upcoming young female politicians, that, you know, you can actually succeed. But right now we look at the arbitrary arrest, we look at the crackdown, we look at the abductions, the continued victimization of that honorable member. Really, it's something that is discouraging. So what I'm saying is, yes, we have the quota system that is trying so hard to ensure that women take part in politics, but that alone cannot achieve, or that alone cannot guarantee active participation and representation of women, because there are other structures around that are bordering around women in politics that are not really enabling. So as long as we have not dealt with those, then at the end of the day, we'll have these conversations time and again, and will not achieve anything. Look at in terms of resources and how women actually do have limited resources in terms of campaigning and so forth and so forth. So I feel like for us really to try and say that we are now empowering women and we want women to participate, we really need to level up. We really need to ensure that the quota system is actually institutionalized, even to party politics, where at party level, at micro level, you know, where at party level, women are actually encouraged and they are supported so that they can be able to participate, they are supported with skills, and we also ensure that we have got a level playing field.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much, Thabiso, for those comments. Thank you very much for that. I believe that as a nation, we should be making much more remarkable progress towards ensuring that the quota system works, and also towards empowering as many women as we can, so that they can effectively participate in the political life of our country. Women constitute a very significant population of not only the continent, but Zimbabwe as a country in particular. I would like to bring in Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo with a question that was also submitted to us on our Facebook page. And this question requires you to make a clarification, Mr. Emmanuel Gumbo, a clarification that has dominated political debate in our country, and especially in the townships. It has been written here that from 2000, ZANU-PF, that is the ruling party, has suffered some consecutive electoral defeats, essentially in the cities, and has lost control of the municipalities to the opposition, the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance. And this turned urban governance into a battlefield as ZANU-PF dramatically re-centralized powers over local authorities, developed parallel party structures, and used the militia to control central markets and peri-urban land. This has led many people to be confused about the urban situation in Zimbabwe, characterized by power cuts, shortage of water supply, and poor housing. And now the question to you, Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo, is that who is to blame for this deteriorating situation in the urban areas? Is it the MDC Alliance members of parliaments that preside over those urban constituencies and their councillors and mayors, or it is the ruling party ZANU-PF that forms the government at large?
Well, thank you very much, Sir Anotida. I'm very happy that that question has been brought before, as it helps me to set the record straight towards the deteriorating situation in our cities and towns. I would like to appreciate the fact that it has been mentioned that the situation started to deteriorate since the defeat, not only defeat, but a heavy defeat of ZANU-PF during time immemorial. So I would like to put forward that the deteriorating system, it is as a result of that defeat. Hence, ZANU-PF is now up to sabotage the delivery system to our cities and towns nationwide. This is so on the clear basis as evidenced by the destruction of homes, the destruction of markets, almost in the cities that have been resoundingly won by the MDC Alliance, as led by President Advocate Nelson Chamisa. So that evidence on its own, if you want to signal on how it has been executed, it has been a target to the areas which are heavily won by the MDC, if you check closely, whereby the move is intended to disperse those people, more specifically to put them to the rural areas where ZANU-PF believes that they can manipulate and intimidate people to vote for them as compared to the urban cities. But however, we have seen this sabotage for quite a long time. This is on the clear basis that our cities, in as much as they are under council, and I'm glad and happy to mention that as MDC Alliance, we run the majority of the cities across the country. But however, due to the capture, I would like to put it that way, that it is captured by ZANU-PF that has seen the disservice of our service delivery within our cities, whereby the government, through the local government, has taken over the powers to run cities. This is so on the clear basis that there is now conflation between the state and ZANU-PF, where now the state is ZANU-PF and ZANU-PF is the state. ZANU-PF has done this through the implementation of the Urban Council Act. If you check the Urban Council Act at this moment, the council on its own has no powers, totally no powers to either procure water chemicals. The council, what it has to do, they have to write to the procurement board, so that the procurement board will take the requisition to the local government, and the local government at the same time it will report it to the cabinet, then the cabinet it will report to the president. So in summation, it is very clear that these delivery services rest and starts and ends with I would like people to understand that I'm referring to ZANU-PF on its own, because Emerson is ZANU-PF, ZANU-PF is Emerson. So this has affected our cities, whereby our city has been created into weak institutions, which has no powers at all to implement whatever policies that they come up as council. Because at the end of the day, it is the local government that approves all those policies and disapproves everything. This is so. We have seen also there is a Joint Venture Act, which also requires the council on its own, or if it wants to partner with private limited companies to see development in our cities, the council must, as according to this Joint Venture Act, must seek approval again from the cabinet and the president. Hence my submission that the buck stops with Emerson Mnangagwa. Secondly, we have seen Emerson during around 26 July 2019, where he made a proclamation that he has acquired 690 million for the Kunzi Dam construction. But however, up until today, nothing is seen to fruition towards that dam construction. So such proclamation clearly tells the people of Zimbabwe as a whole that the service delivery at this particular moment is in the hands of Emerson Mnangagwa and ZANU-PF as a part. We have also seen another situation whereby if council wants to rather acquire chemicals, specifically at this moment, I understand that chemicals are being acquired outside the country, whereby the council needs at the same time foreign currency. They have to go again through the finance ministry. Who is the finance ministry? It's Mtulingu. Who is Mtulingu? Mtulingu is ZANU-PF. Who is ZANU-PF? ZANU-PF is Emerson Mnangagwa. Hence again, the buck stops with Emerson Mnangagwa. Moving on again to that, I would like to point out that there is need to amend the Urban Council Act, as this act is administered specifically by the Minister of Local Government. He has the powers to approve anything. He has the powers to disapprove anything. Thereby, this has seen the deteriorating system in service delivery hitting our towns and cities. There is also evidence of sabotage from the local government, which is spearheaded by ZANU-PF members, whereby I understand that at some point during the period of Mayor Gumbo, he requested some funds from the local government for the construction of additional dams, so that we will be able to supply adequate waters to our cities. Because given the situation right now, as I'm talking to you right now, Harare itself is providing water not only to the Harare residents, but it is providing service delivery to Chitungwiza as a town, to Noton, to areas like Roa. So for it as Harare to cater for all areas, the burden rests within the Harare as a council, which is straining itself. That's another thing that we need to look into. But it is as a result of the failure by ZANU-PF to understand that it has been overtaken by events. Because if you check, there are areas being built by people who are settling wherever they are settling. This has been evidenced by the confession of ZANU-PF again, whereby they acquire stands through illegal cooperatives who have become the land barons of today. So this has resulted in creation of, again, new towns within and near Harare. Specifically, I would like to talk of Harare at this moment on the clear basis that Harare is a satellite town to all the cities in the CH. On the clear basis that the challenges being faced in Harare are a reflection to the challenges being faced in the nation as a country, in the whole Zimbabwe. So there is need to amend that Council Act as to give powers and retain the executive powers to our mayors, and thereby giving enough and adequate decision-making bodies of the council on its own without reporting to anyone, or also, and giving powers again to the council to engage with other private sectors to see service delivery being executed, to see development within our towns. There is also another thing that I would like to bring before, that we have seen again capture by the government of the cities within not only Harare but in major cities of Zimbabwe, whereby if you check closely, you'll find out there are areas right now being major dominantly invaded by ZANU-PF members. If you go to areas like, for instance, if you go to areas like Ushokunze, you will find people dominantly there are ZANU-PF. This is clear again, corruption by individuals who are working in the councils, but whilst they are under the local government, which is a bureaucracy within the cities in our country. And this bureaucracy is the one which runs and spears all the programs within our cities. So I'd like to dismiss and put forward that it is not the MDC Alliance and thereby it's ZANU-PF that has destroyed and has worked tirelessly to see deteriorating situation of our service delivery in our country. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, there is need for people to understand that the council, in as much as it is in charge of the cities, people must understand that the same council is not in control by the issues that whereby the state runs everything, it administers everything, the procurement of chemicals, the procurement of everything that needs to see development in our cities rests within the local government, which reports to the minister, and the minister takes to the cabinet, and the cabinet takes to the president. So in summation of this, I would like to point out that it is non-debatable that it is ZANU-PF that has led us to this situation where we are today. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo. Thank you very much for your comments, and thank you very much for that response. I do have a follow-up question for you with regards to the policy of devolution. We are going to just talk about that a bit in a moment. I would like to bring back Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida. I'm sure that you were listening to the response that was given by Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo about how ZANU-PF in some instances or to some varying degree sabotages the work of the councils, the work of members of parliament who belong to the opposition party, the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance, just to destabilize service delivery and to paint a picture that the members that they elected are not up to acting to their best interest. I have a follow-up question for you, given your earlier response about bipartisan politics and how our parliament needs to cooperate so that the best interests of the generality of the Zimbabwean people can be served. It has been argued by other researchers that that very aspect of heightened partisanship in politics and in elections, it makes the elections and the governing process itself interesting, other than a situation whereby there's consensus, there's usual consensus, often consensus on issues that might split parties' interests and parties' agendas in terms of development of their constituencies and their areas. And now the question is partisan politics a hallmark of vibrant democracy or a broken one?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I am glad that my response comes as to supplement on what Honorable Gumbo has built on. And to qualify this, the questions that we are answering to were specifically shared to specific panelists. But I want to reflect on what Mr. Gumbo just spoke about. To say the Harare City Council on its own is not a homogeneous entity. He gave a splendid submission on how toxic partisan politics has suffocated and exsanguinated service delivery. But I also want to say, and to our viewers and to him, and to me as well as a citizen of this nation, to say, we have for far too long allowed our city council to go unaccountable. I would like to give an example. Our Harare City has a football club as we speak. Where are they getting the funds to finance a football club? How much does it cost to have Harare City playing and within the Zimbabwe Premier Soccer League? They also have the Hornets, they are playing basketball. I'm not saying recreational services are not good at the workplace, but I'm simply saying, have we questioned and interrogated the priority system within our institutions? We have councillors allocating themselves again, regardless of the political affiliation, stands to themselves. Are we also not allowing corruptness and pervasiveness of service delivery to come from within? This is a question so that we have a balanced dialogue. Now, coming back to the question that you said, is partisan politics a hallmark of democracy or a broken one? I would want to say partisan politics is an important fabric of democracy. This is where every citizen is able to contest on the political platform, where we say it is the marketplace of ideas, to say, this is what I want. This is how I feel the nation should go forward. And if they are like-minded citizens that see, from my same perspective, let us join hands. But now we look at the age of our nation. We look at our nation is more like, we are more like adolescents. And if you allow adolescents to drink and to sleep out, and you say it is freedom of expression, definitely they will sleep out, but the consequences, you face it. Number one, I would want to throw this to the citizens at large, those who are listening. How political conscious are we as a nation? So we need to debunk the definition of politics and activism to say, it is not about who is vocal the most, but like what Mr. Gumbo did, it's about caring for the facts. The national facts that we have at hand. It is about casting a vote where it is possible, following up on the vote that you give within the partisan politics. Interestingly, if you ask anybody from political blue, political yellow, MDCA to Z, ZANU-PF to Chipangano to G4, on how many of those have managed to read their manifestos, very few will tell you. There was an outcry when ZANU-PF was compensating the white farmers, but it is clearly enshrined within their manifesto. It also goes to qualify that we are having politics of personalities, not of partisan, but of personalities. We sentimentalize this act of governance to say who is more vocal. Citizens are likely to be justified to say it was 37 years under the rulership of the Honorable Mr. Mugabe. Hero or villain, it's a discussion for another day, and we wanted change of some sort. Hence, we endorsed the new dispensation, or we endorsed the power grabbing that happened within MDC, as they said, when Morgan T. Changirai said. But these are people that are hungry for change. And so as citizens, how political conscious are we in making sure that we assist as an important stakeholder within the political fabric? So I'll qualify again. It is important. Every citizen has a right to contest. But now let us look at the success factors that allows the partisan politics. Number one, everybody within this platform, yourself, myself, Thabiso, Mr. Gumbo, we have no say when it comes to the presidency. We are under 40. So at the end of the day, our discussion and what we say, to them, it becomes music. But where it matters the most, we are not included. It's something to say when we call for partisan politics. Who within the parties or who within the citizen has the talking button to say, I want to enter the stage? That is something that is critical. Number two, it is the issue of the Zimbabwean partisan politics is very peculiar in terms of that the national peace and reconciliation is also important in this. Why? Because we are seeing emergence of tribal political entities, where a certain tribe is saying enough is enough. For far too long, we have been neglected within the access of power. We are not the gatekeepers. What is wrong? And at the end of the day, we have come to a stage where, as a nation, we get to give a certain political party to a certain tribe and a certain political party to a certain tribe, which is very toxic. It now becomes very oxymoron because we have a lot of players, some which are tribal, some which are partisan, which is something that we really need to interrogate, and we really need to see how best can we go forward. But I would say, like the figure of speech that I give to say that Zimbabwe is like an adolescent child who is simply tested the test of beer and sex. It calls now again to the three pillars of our nation, the executive, the judiciary, and the parliament, to nurture the democracy that we want. Because of the nation of the democracy has been taken away. It's no longer the democracy that we want. For you to live happily in Zimbabwe, it is alleged you need to be associated with ZANU-PF. For you to speak sense and to belong to the masses, it is alleged you need to belong to MDC. That is along our partisan politics. But at the end of the day, we lose a lot of ideas. We lose a lot of political will from this practice because, and you know, our partisan politics in Zimbabwe is not educated, like I said. It is only about personalities. So it becomes a problem in its own to say, what are we doing? Where are we going? And when it comes to partisan politics, there's a key stakeholder that is not also included, the diaspora. So, Mr. Gumbo, I would like to believe he's in South Africa and you are within the States. You are contributing a lot to the Zimbabwean, to this dialogue. But when it comes to having a political party leading one and making sure that views are represented, by our laws, you are not included, which means we have citizens by virtue of being citizens, but they're also not included within the structural framework of what? Of partisan politics. The danger to it now is, like Mr. Gumbo said, we have seen it and we need to acknowledge that some certain political powers have veto powers in parliament. Some certain political powers have paramilitary groups. I'll give you an example. It has been said by the Minister of Youth to say the National Youth Service is now an independent function that is there to bridge the intelligence information gap within the civic education. But it is considered to say those guys come from border gates are a paramilitary group of a certain political party. So which means they have foot soldiers to discipline even Mr. Gumbo, even myself, or even you, when you want to speak about partisan politics. So my parting shot would be to the citizen to say, how political conscious are we as a nation? Because our fight against ZANU-PF or our fight against MDC or certain members of parliament should not be about the proximity to the eating table to say corruption is bad because I'm far away from the eating table. It has to be a virtue to say corruption is bad, for it needs to be dealt with.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Our citizens need to be politically conscious to say, when I get to vote for a member of parliament, when I get to make a decision for my councillor, when I get to cast a vote for a president, what exactly do I want? Do you know that some people would go into a voting booth, they would see, where is MDC Alliance? It would be Mtorodo, the insurance of MDC Alliance. The same would happen to MDC. But to say, how much do you understand and do you know, and what is the working trailblazer of this person, we don't know. Which is what? which is a challenge. Now, something that is key to this discussion of partisan politics, it is the environment. It is about to be elevated or to be chewed away with the Constitutional Amendment Bill number 2, which is something that we should not dilute this discussion, but it is also important in making sure that the judiciary, when it comes to partisan politics, is it going to be independent? Who is going to enforce the executive to stay into line, which is something that is very key. And by what age is someone going to contest as a judge? Even the issues of young people within the parliament, because we should also be in the parliament. The quota system is a reflection again on what Thabiso said. I think to women it's justified, but to the young people it remains a quota system. It's never fair. It's not like we have been barred from the political mainstream, though it needs funds, but it all needs to say how enlined and where is the appetite for us to contest on that one. So Mr. Anotida, partisan politics is important. It allows us to have different views to the creature we call politics. And I would want to say, it's more like we're the people that have gone through the very same fact path, only to reach different conclusions. And for that, we should not address each other as the opposition party, because that's where it starts. Yeah. That's where the problem it is, because you never tolerate your opposition. But if we came to codify and say other institutions from the fabric of democracy, it do us more good. Thank you so much. I think to me that is key.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Delight, Tatenda, Muchazondida. Thank you very much for those comments, and thank you very much for that response. Mr. Emmanuel Gumbo, I would like to bring you in before I get to Thabiso. You have talked about urban administration, and you've referred to an act of parliament that governs how the administration is handled by the councillors, by the mayors, by the members of parliament, and maybe by the respective ministry that governs a specific service delivery, let's say water, let's say electricity. And you have argued that it needs to be reformed so as to ensure that more powers are given to those people that are directly on the ground rather than those that are at the top and might not have sufficient knowledge about what's really going on down in those constituencies. Just recently, and with this new administration of President Emmerson Mnangagwa, there's been this talk of a comprehensive devolution and decentralization policy that could be key to addressing some of these issues that you have talked about, to ensure that we promote development across all the 10 provinces of our country. Do you believe that there are any prospects for development and growth given the effective implementation and adoption of this devolution policy?
Okay. Thank you very much, Anotida. First and foremost, I would like to correct a certain statement that you made. The issue of devolution didn't come up during the period of Emmerson Mnangagwa. It actually came up after, and let me say this, I would like to salute and give hats off to Honorable Tendai, who actually won the landmark ruling on devolution, which gives effect to the actualization of devolution, because devolution on its own is being provided for by the chapter 14 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So if anything, it was only the actualization, and Emmerson Mnangagwa, what he had done was to delay the implementation of devolution, which takes the Community Water of Alliance and Honorable Rastmakam, represented by Honorable Tendai, to see the actualization of this devolution. Thank you on that one. So, in as much as I believe and I hope that if devolution gets to be implemented in the most accurate and transparent manner, definitely I have no doubt whatsoever that it will see a fruition of its day and it will deliver to its intended objectives. At the same time, I would like to give thanks to the organizations like COTRAD who are doing very well in unpacking the concept of devolution to the masses on the ground. As this devolution seeks to decentralize power from central government to the local government, it now answers to the question of amendment of the Urban Act Council, as it gives the power to the people on its own. At the same time, it gives back 5% of every percent that has been made to see to the development of every community. There is no reason whatsoever why should anything be spearheaded, or rather be raised in Harare. Given a situation right now with a situation whereby the previously implementation of COVID-19 centers, you could check that we had only Wilkins at some point. At the same time, it was not something that we should be expecting in this era, whereby you could try to do it hard to just establish a COVID-19 center in Blawayo, or to establish it in Toko and whatsoever. So by implementation of devolution, I would like to believe that it will see development within our areas. However, there is this other issue now which we now need to deal with. There is issue of establishment of the district development committees. On that one, I would like to agree that it will see and rather give transparency to the execution and city development in our cities. But there is now this creature, which I don't know where it came from and what it seeks to achieve, being called the Provincial Development Committee. And now this Provincial Development Committee is being said to report to the Minister of Local Government, the same Minister of Government who reports to the Cabinet, and the Cabinet reports to the President. Automatically, we have reversed the concept of devolution. So I would like to believe in co-upon the responsible authority and the people of Zimbabwe to stand up and speak on what they believe. Yes, also to those organizations that I mentioned, our own MPs and the contract and other organizations that are spearheading and unpacking the concept of devolution. However, it's now upon us as the citizens, specifically the young people, to stand up and speak, to see to what we want to achieve, and to see to the establishment of the bodies that are going to execute the objective and roles of this devolution, so that it will give to its fruition what it intended to achieve. So in other words, if it is going to be implemented transparently, I would like to believe that it will definitely bring in positive results. But if it sees what is happening right now, whereby this Provincial Development Committee, we never know where it came from, who established it, I doubt that will suffer until Jesus Christ returns under the jaws of Emerson Damozomnanga.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo. I would now want to bring Thabiso Sibanda to have a last follow-up question for you before I close this discussion. Earlier on, we talked about the quota system and equitable representation in the Zimbabwean parliament. Thabiso, what major gains have the first group of the female members of parliament appointed under the quota system made? What can we cite to say these were the positives, maybe encouraging positives, that women participation in the political space has been so much of the best interest of the Zimbabwean populace?
Okay, so I would like to applaud the fact that there has been a number of advocacy initiatives that have paid off, especially by having women represented in parliament in their numbers. They've really managed to push for a lot of policies that are pro the development of women. If we look at issues to do with equal work, equal pay, issues to do with paid maternity leaves for women who are in formal employment, issues to do with policies around gender-based violence, looking at the constitutional ruling of 2016 January that was outlawing child marriages, and quite a number of pro-women's rights initiatives that they have taken part in, and ensuring that women are taking part in some of the key platforms that have to do with the development of the nation. So I think that those are some of the issues that women have actively pushed for, and it wouldn't have been achieved if there were no women making noise around that space. But however, like, I still feel like there's more to be done. I still feel like there's more that we can do in ensuring that women are fully represented to a satisfactory level in Parliament, and not just represented, but we also want to ensure that there's quality participation, you know. So we still need to ensure that representation of women in Parliament is not just about presentism. It's not just about counting numbers. It's not just about counting, you know, heads to say we had women, but we also need to ensure that there's quality participation, because I mean, it doesn't make sense to have 200 women and not have issues being pushed, and not have things being done, and not have progress being made. So I think that in as much as we might say we have had those gains in terms of policies that are there to ensure that there is an enabling environment around women, I think we still need to do more in terms of ensuring that we still get more numbers of women who are also going to ensure that they participate, and they bring about change in their communities, they bring about change in the nation. So it's still a long walk to freedom, really. So yeah, at this point, really, I can say that we are going somewhere, but it's a long walk to freedom. But I think I still feel like there's still more that we can do, and ensure that women are doing better, and we are having women who are able, you know, to push for the issues of women, to push for the issues of children, and ensure that they can, you know, also bring about change. I mean, and also look at even in terms of this is not just about a certain political party. I think even all the other, you know, political parties, we really need to ensure, because one of the challenges that we're fighting is not just issues to do with women in politics. It's also issues to do with ageism, you know, to say, if we might have women, do we have young women as well? So we need to also look at the fact, that age factor, to say, do we have young women also participating? Do we have young women whom we can look up to? I mean, to push and ensure that they create a safe path for the next generations to come, to be able to also participate. So I think we also need to look at issues to do that, to say, in as much as we are dealing and we're talking about women in Parliament, like, do we have young women who are able to take up space? We have a lot of potential out there. We have a lot of fired up young, you know, aspiring politicians. So we really need to make sure that we look into that as women. We ensure that, you know, we build their capacity. We start mobilizing now. We start organizing now. Find there are a lot of things that needs to be done in terms of electoral reforms and stuff. But I think we really need to start capacity building. We need to start mobilizing. We need to start organizing to see as many women as we can in the Parliament, and taking up spaces, and taking up important spaces in cabinet. I mean, it's very obvious that a Minister of Women Affairs is going to be a woman, but we need to see women, a woman being a Minister of Finance. We need to see a woman being a Minister of Health. I mean, we've seen men all these years and they've failed dismally, really. So we really need to see and tap into the capacity of women.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Thabiso. Thank you very much for that response. I'm afraid we are running out of time, but now let me just invite you all to give your closing remarks before we get to close the show. beginning with Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo. I may need you to just unmute your microphone so that I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to take this opportunity to call upon young people to stand up and speak. As well, it is important that we define and defend, then we secure our future from these outdated and clueless gluttons under the leadership of their own Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. This fight being fought by the likes of Job Scala, Jacob Ngaruvume, Hope Chungono, it is the fact that we are supposed to fight, we as the young people. So I make a co-op challenge to the young people to find ourselves and regroup and confront the challenges that are before us. Talking of service delivery, it is upon ourselves to make sure that we fight for what we believe in. It is upon ourselves as well to make sure that we take the leadership, those responsible within the authorities to account. So in summation, I would like to say devolution is as well our next revolution.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Zellers Gumbo. Let me now invite Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida to give the closing remarks.
So, Mr. Anotida, I cannot thank you enough to say this was a program of importance. So, number one, I would want to remind fellow viewers to say politicians, they serve you by mistake and serve their interest by intention. So, as young people, to say whether MDCA or ZANU-PF is going to deliver a Zimbabwe that we want to achieve Agenda 2063, we need to come on the drawing table and we need to see one another. Now, have you seen how we have steered this conversation? It went well. Even in the mainstream political arena, lobbying also helps. It then now pushes people to be very rigid. The animosity is now to higher tempos. Army, Twitter, now to the second issue, which is accountability. Accountability should not be a narrative within the political sphere because politics does not exist in a vacuum. We should be able to hold our leaders accountable in our political parties, like they said, the micro-politics, should be able to hold accountable our leaders within the economic spheres because it is the economics that propels the politics. Even Mr. Gumbo, devolution, if you go to my constituents without a t-shirt, all your wise words will not be listened to. You need money to buy the t-shirts. The economics is important within this thing. Number three is we need to resolve the existing conflict within the customary and the judicial pillars of our nation because the chiefs are said to be independent. But sometimes you see that when a chief leans towards a certain political entity, they are threatened. When they seem to lean towards a certain political entity, they are awarded by a Land Cruiser or a Mitsubishi or whatever high-end class car. Which means our chiefs, they also need to come on board. If they're going to be political entities, we need to know. If they're going to be spectators to human development and reserve our heritage, we also need to know. The other issue is on the issue, we need to push within the policies. We have people within the confined areas. Their voice matters. Their voice is needed. People that were in prison did not vote, which means we lost maybe the turning point of the politics. Maybe Mr. Gumbo, if those people within the confined areas had voted, the revised figures may have come within the favors of certain political parties. So we're saying we need not to leave anybody behind. Everybody matters. The existing social mobility between the urban dwellers and the rural dwellers need to be dealt with decisively. Just because here in Harare you now understand your vote matters beyond a packet of rice. But in Uzumba, I've got good friends in Uzumba and they would allow me to say this. When rice comes, it has a different meaning to what it means to you. So I'm saying with the level of political consciousness, we need to push for it, and we need to make sure that when we call for reforms and accountability, it is not pushed within certain political animal and entity, but it needs to be a blanket instrument to say, Abba, doesn't matter I wish I could have expressed some of my remarks in Ndebele, but I'm learning. It's key in making sure that even as we advocate, we make sure that we elevate each tribe, each constituency, and everybody, and galvanize our social relations. I salute you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delight Tatenda Muchazondida. Let me now invite Thabiso Sibanda. Thabiso, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there, Arno.
Wonderful, wonderful. You can go ahead with the closing remarks.
Okay, so I would like to close by saying that I keep saying the statement over and over again that not really political, consciousness actually should not be imposed on anyone. So it's quite sad that at some point we find ourselves feeling insulted or being insulted, to say, you young people are not doing anything. But I mean, like, it shouldn't be imposed. Just look around your surroundings and look at where you are right now. If you're comfortable, well, that's okay. But I feel like we are shortchanging not just ourselves, but generations by not being proactive citizens. And being a proactive citizen doesn't necessarily mean you have to associate yourself with a certain party. You can do that, but being a proactive citizen, it means that you are aware of your environment, you know what is right and what is wrong, and you are able to speak up. I think the greatest betrayal of all times is keeping quiet when you can say something about something wrong. I think that's the worst betrayal that you can ever do. So I feel like young people are not really doing enough. There's more that we could do outside even political circles and lines, because this is about us as a generation, not just as young people from ZANU-PF and young people from MDCA, because I've seen young people from ZANU-PF being actually shortchanged in terms of participating in politics, because when it comes to campaign times, it's now a matter of who has the money, who has the bag, and who does not. So I feel like we need to make a deliberate collective effort as young people and really define what we want and define the future that we want, and ensure that we stand up and we speak out. At the end of the day, we have nothing to lose. We have nothing to lose but the chains that are around us. I have, in some instances, been termed too political. I don't subscribe to any party, but I told myself I stopped apologizing. I told myself, if standing up against human rights abuse makes me sound or look political, then it's fine. Give me the term any day, it's okay. What I won't do is I won't sit at a table where there's lies. I won't sit at a table where I have to mince my words. I won't sit at a table where I have to pretend. So I say my truth, and I don't have a price, because whatever price that may be might not be enough to ensure that the generations that come after me also benefit. So it's my duty to ensure that I fight for what is right. So it should be everyone's duty to fight for change.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Thabiso. Thank you very much for those closing remarks. Viewers and listeners, our topic today was politics and parliamentary representation. This is the weekly youth dialogue on the conversation with Anotida Chikumbu Book TV. I would like to invite you all to like and subscribe to the conversation with Anotida Chikumbu on YouTube and on Facebook, and do not forget to subscribe. This is the platform where I get to sit with the youth, in particular, the youth from the continent and the youth from our country, Zimbabwe, to discuss issues that are affecting us, from politics, economics, to social issues. Thank you very much, panelists, for joining me on this platform, and have a good day.